My name is Mark Alvarez. I'm working with the Corradino Group, which is a consultant to the city, and we're working on a project with to try to improve service on the Sunny Isles Beach shuttle. We have Ms. Audra Kurtz, the assistant city manager, here as well, and Fred DeMarco, our new transportation manager. So everybody's here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a short presentation about what we're doing and what we'd like to hear from you. We would like some of your opinions on this. You are probably familiar with the shuttles. You've seen them at least going by you. They're the blue and yellow smaller buses. They are run by the city. The city runs them with county funding, and they're designed to really to help go into the streets that the county doesn't serve. We can talk a little bit more about that. So we have a number of objectives that when we do a study like this, we look at a bus system and we think of certain things and we want to know certain things. So the first thing we do is a lot of data and analysis. It's really of the system and how it works. You know, what's the ridership being how many people get on per day, per month, per year. We look for which days they're getting on. We're looking for all of the data. It's kind of like a stool stands on three legs, so this is the data leg. And then we look at, in this part we have to look a little bit at the data, but mostly we ask people for what are the unmet needs. This is like the other leg of the stool. We do surveys, we ask people what's going on. And so we've done two surveys. We've done a survey on board the bus and a survey online. And we asked people a number of questions about whether they use the bus, how they use the bus, where they go, and where else they would like to go, and what are the problems. We look not only at the service itself, we look at the physical improvements. Sunny Isles Beach has pretty good stops, pretty good shelters and so forth, but again, we do ask people what are the needs they would like to see. Of course, we also went out there and we talked we looked at the data. I rode the buses, and the third leg of our stool is, so we have the people who use it, we have the data, and then we have who operates it, and we talk to all the drivers, because the drivers talk to their passengers, they know what's going on, and so we got a lot of information from the drivers themselves about what some of those needs are in the community. Two of the big objectives on a transit system like this, one is to serve the community and provide that detailed service in the back streets and the streets that are not on Collins. The other priority is to actually provide connections for people to get to the county's transit system and major transit systems. So we always look at the connectivity. Right here in Sunny Isles, because you have about 6 routes that come in here that are not the cities, you have pretty good connectivity, but still this shuttle helps bring you to Collins to make those connections. The big topic these days is Brightline. We'll talk about that a little more. Of course, we realize that connecting to Brightline is very important. You can go to Aventura, but you can't cross the street right now. So that will be, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then finally, we call it first and last mile. It means that you get to the shuttle somehow. Most everybody in Sunny Isles walks, but in a lot of communities we look at bicycle riding, scooters, whatever it may be. Here, that's a very stressful issue because of Collins, because of the streets and the traffic. That there's really not a lot of bicycle facilities, so it's a little bit of a lower priority, but we do look at that as well. Our work, like I said, it stands on those 3 legs of the stool. We did a lot of data collection. I'll show you some of that data collection, some of the results that we found. We do come here. This meeting is really, I'm talking a lot right now, but then we want to hear from you to know what you think. What are your thoughts? If you do use the shuttle, if you don't, what do you think could improve it? And then we're going to talk a little bit about the service itself, the bus itself, and the route, and the schedule, and so forth. We'll also talk about alternatives to provide the same service. So we have days, particularly Sunday, where the use of the bus is very low. The ridership is very low. And so we're looking at alternatives. We call them demand response alternatives, where basically you use your phone, and a service comes to you, picks you up, and brings you to where you want to go, door to door. It would be free, but it's also only within the area that the bus already serves, but that the shuttle already serves. And finally, we'll come back to the City Commission after these meetings. We'll finish our report, and we'll have recommendations for what can be done to improve the service. So if you're not familiar with it, that's the route. It's laid on its side, so the Atlantic Ocean is on the bottom. You have a very long city, so it made sense in a way to put it this way. It's a very comprehensive route. Sunny Isles Beach is actually very compact, so it covers most all of the city quite well. It's pretty easy to walk to any of the stops. There are about 54, 55 stops. This is the schedule. I know you can't read it from there. It does operate 7 days per week. The least amount is on Sunday. It runs approximately from 8 in the morning till about 7 at night. Yeah, actually almost 8 o'clock at night. For the orange line, the blue line is a little shorter. It stops at about 4 o'clock and does not run on the weekends. They both do about the same thing, except if you're not familiar, the blue line went up to Hallandale. It also has it goes along North Bay Road, but it does not go to the Winn-Dixie and Intracoastal Mall. It's very small variations, and we may be trying to combine some of those later on. So this is kind of some of the data. I don't know if you're interested or not, but I can tell you the ridership before COVID in 2018, there would be about 10,000 people per year riding on the shuttle bus. So it was money well spent. It was providing good service. During COVID, Sunny Isles is like every other city with transit, whether it was retail, anything. During COVID, everything dropped to the bottom. So you see the graph, you see between those red lines, that's the COVID pandemic. Ridership dropped off tremendously. So, and in a lot of places in Florida, they just stopped running the transit services because nobody wanted to get on. They had nowhere to go, and they were afraid to get on a small bus and risk getting COVID. The recovery out of COVID has been slow, and even as we stand here today, well past the pandemic, arguably, I know there's still Omicron and so forth, but we're, so to say, well past the pandemic, but we still have not reached the ridership that we did before the pandemic. So we do, and we see that in traffic, we see that in retail. Every sector has not reached the level before the pandemic, and we're all sort of working out the new reality that we're going to work in the future. We also look, so this is a beach community, and when we look at transit, we always assume that with beach communities, we have seasonal changes, very big seasonal changes. Everybody comes in South Florida in the winter, so we expect a lot more business in the winter, a lot more ridership on the bus in the winter, and much less in the summer. But in the case of Sunny Isles, you don't see a big fluctuation on this graph. These are the months throughout the year averaged. And it's because we know from the surveys that it's a lot of people who live here that use this service. We're not really getting tourists very much at all. And that's a good thing. It was meant to provide something for the residents, and that's what it's doing. This is kind of detailed, but we are able to, because of the technology on board the buses and the bus drivers keeping logs, we can actually tell what stops and what, we call them segments, what parts of the drive have the most passengers and the least. So we do look at that to see if something's not productive, and we can improve the schedule by moving it. We'll do that. Of course, the biggest stops are, Winston Towers, and the area just north of us is very busy. Aventura Mall is a very big stop. Publix is a very big stop, both because of Edo Cup School and the Publix. And the other big stop is Intracoastal Mall, Winn-Dixie. Winn-Dixie at Intracoastal. So we also, we do a lot of data, and we look not only at the operations of the bus, we look at the sort of geography of Sunny Isles Beach. And the first thing we look at is the other transit service. And I told you before, there's one map of the left map is the shuttle service. The dots are maybe a little hard to see, but it's the route. And you can see it goes out of the city, it goes to Intracoastal Mall, it goes to Aventura. And we do have a Golden Beach run. I'm sorry, not a Golden Beach, a Hallandale run that goes to the Hallandale fire station, which is basically where the ball is that says Hallandale on it. Because of the Miami-Dade transit all along Collins, so you could use the shuttle to reach one of those buses, and you can go all throughout the county. You can go downtown to South Beach Performing Arts Center, you name it. You do have very comprehensive transit services here. So you can reach a lot of buses and go wherever you want. You can also go into Broward and access the Broward transit system through Aventura Mall. So that, if you haven't been there, Aventura has a whole bus station. I guess it's near the Neiman Marcus in Aventura Mall. We always look, like I said, everybody has to get to the bus. So we do look at the pedestrian facilities and bicycle facilities. As I said, in Sunny Isles, bicycle facilities are kind of a strange situation because there's so little room on the roads. But we know that the sidewalks are pretty comprehensive. There's a few places that don't have sidewalks, Golden Shores, because it's single family, and I guess people don't want the sidewalks. There are a few developments on private land that don't have complete sidewalks, but throughout the public part of the city, we find that sidewalks are pretty complete, and we have crosswalks in a lot of places. So we're always near a crosswalk. We always have sidewalks almost anywhere we go. We look at where people live, basically. So we can explore census data and do this. And these are like heat maps. Red is more, blue is less. It's kind of like the rainbow. Red to orange to yellow to green to blue. And purple, I think, is even in there. So, so the density, we look at how many people are living there. It's on the right side. And we have the greatest density. And that's good for bus service. We look for density. We look for density of people. That's how many people per acre or per mile there are in that area. So we know that those are the places that we have to look at most. And in fact, the bus is already serving those areas. And again, Sunny Isles, it's very urban. It's very dense already, so this isn't a hard exercise for us. The other side is really the land use. Again, Sunny Isles is very convenient and very good for transit service because you have so much so close together. All the residences are close, the parks are close, the commercial establishments are also along Collins, and we even have the hotels and some of the condos on the ocean side, although I don't think we're getting a lot of ridership from those areas. And again, because that's more tourist focused, more visitors, and people who don't live here. I'm sorry? Okay. So we look at the census data too because we want to find out who really, we call them transit dependent people who really need transit. And so the first thing we look for is who's already using transit based on census data. So if you're in a household where you got what's called the American Community Survey, the census sends you a longer questionnaire, and they ask you these questions. How did you get to work? Do you have a car? Do you have a motorcycle? Do you have a bicycle? And so forth. So people answer those questions, and we kind of know where people already, the areas where people already use transit to go to work from the census. And the other thing we look at, and this one is the most important one for transit services, is households that have no cars. It's Florida, it's not New York. So we know if you don't have a car, you're not going anywhere unless you have transit or some kind of mobility service that will take you there.
Absolutely no cost?
What, I'm sorry?
There is no cost to ride on these buses?
Yes, there's no cost for it. For this bus, not the county buses. The county buses have a fare. The last thing we look for is what the people who are riding the shuttle right now, the city's shuttle, are mostly riding it for shopping and non-work needs. Not too many people are going to work, and not too many people are using it for school, except at 7:30 and 3 with Norman Ellicott School. But we didn't see people who are going to FIU or going to Alonso Morning and so forth. And so we look at the areas where there's a lot of students. It's on the right side. So we're looking for clusters of where students live, people under 16 who are students. And again, that's based on census data. So that's all of our data crunching, and we do our maps and we do our data analysis with that. And then, like I said, that was one leg of the stool. The other leg is to ask people. We ask people two ways. We sent a young man onto the bus for 3 days, and he had a whole lot of surveys, which I have extras of here. And he asked people to fill out a survey, and it asked them all the questions like first of all, where are they going? Where did they come from? How often they use the transit shuttle. We asked them where they would like to go that they can't go already, and what are the ways that we can improve the service. And it's a simple survey, it's check boxes, and you can check boxes. And so we have the results here very quickly. And most people, I was actually surprised to see that a lot of the ridership on the shuttle bus, and that's not typical of a lot of places, are regular riders. They ride daily or weekly. So we have a lot of regular ridership, and I learned that too riding the bus because the drivers know a lot of their passengers and they have continuing conversations going through the door. They are mostly shopping trips. It's most focused on grocery stores, you know, a little less on entertainment needs, parks, City Hall, grocery. I guess City Hall is because of the post office and other things there. Very few people are using it to go to work. That didn't surprise me. And also very few people are using it to go to school, at least who filled out the survey, because the survey, you know, middle school students don't fill out surveys. So we asked people what they would prefer to have a better service, and most people pretty consistently said, you know, more frequency, more on time, and the city's shuttle has a phone app. It's a smartphone app. I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but the smartphone app has some problems where the information is not always correct, so we had a lot of comments about that. And that smartphone app is very important because buses in any urban area, it's not just Sunny Isles, they're always behind schedule. But if you have an application on your phone that says, aha, it's only 3 minutes away, you feel more comfortable. So we need to work on that application to make sure that it's accurate. And a lot of people said, you know, a little more information about the route at stops would be helpful. So those were the 5 big things. There were a lot of other things. As far as new destinations, for the people on board the bus, that survey, the biggest one was Walmart in Hallandale. That was where they wanted to go. And then Aventura Brightline Station was also up there, and we were not surprised to see that. And then it went down. What I guess was a little surprised is nobody really was looking to go to FIU, to the Olathe State Park, to, I guess we didn't capture enough students, but no one was looking to go to Alonso Morning High School, all in that area. For the citywide survey, that's the one we did online. So the first survey was on the bus for 3 days. The second one was just you got to it through the city's website. And on that one, the first question we asked, because we call it branching the survey, was, do you ride the bus already? Or do you not? So it's really like 2 surveys. And then, of course, for the people who don't ride the bus already, we ask them a few extra questions, like, do you even know it's there? Which about half the people did know it exists, but of those half, only, about a third of them actually knew where it goes, what the stops were, what it does at all. So and that's important because we know a lot of people who don't use transit are completely unaware of what transit does or what it can do for them. Most are probably drivers and they just think, oh, it's a bus in my way. So we do look at that, so we know that we have to put a little more information out there because people will use transit if they know it's free and if they know it comes on time and they have an application and it can take them where they want to go. For their preferences, it was very similar to the other survey. They said these would be the riders who filled out the online survey. They said, well, we'd like it to be a little more on time, follow its schedule more. They also complained about the phone application, and they also did mention more route information at the stops, which helps people understand, even if they don't have a smartphone. And finally, they talked about cleanliness of the bus. And I think that's a heightened awareness at this point. Again, coming out of COVID, people are very sensitive to a fingerprint on the window or anything like that. So I think it's a very important need at this point. For new destinations, on the online, those people said the Brightline station. That was the most important stop. And then I think the Walmart came after that, and surprisingly, Target in Aventura. I was actually surprised. I guess the Target in Aventura is better. But there isn't a Target near here, so that's perhaps why. So again, we got shopping destinations as desirable destinations and the Brightline station. Very little for schools and Olathe State Park and so forth. So we put all those together and kind of made a little map so you could see what the most popular places that people want to go were. That's averaging all the surveys. And the Walmart is very, very much desired. Brightline station is very much desired. Brightline's an easy one for us to do because we already go to Aventura. So there's probably, to the Aventura Mall, I should say. So it's pretty close. And I can state pretty easily, we'll be recommending that we make the bus extend just a little bit to the Brightline station. The others are a little more difficult, particularly Walmart puts us through another drawbridge, and we try to avoid those because of schedules. But that's basically what all the surveys said for new destinations. So I told you, like, the three legs of the stool is the people who use it, the customers, the operations, and then we asked the drivers, the people who are like kind of working in the store every day. And I went riding with the drivers, and we looked at all the issues. So the drivers, I think one of the things that comes out in this shuttle's analysis is the route is pretty much, the route meaning where it goes, is pretty much good. It covers the city very well and covers most of the destinations that people want to go to pretty well. The schedule is really where the problems are. It's a very long route. It's a very difficult route because of a number of issues, and the drivers pointed those out. So there are places like in Arlen House and so forth, where they even Ocean View and Coastal Towers, where they have to go into the parking lots to make their U-turn. Or I think even on Winston Towers, the U-turn is very tight at the end. They have a lot of trouble. It does slow them down, and we looked at those. They have speed bumps to go through. They have places where sometimes there's a parked car too close, and they have to back the bus up, which they should never have to do. We try to avoid them ever having to be in a position to do that. So we've got all that, and we have a pretty good idea of where we need to clean up the route a little bit to try to help them stay on schedule. The other problem is just the traffic, and you see the two pictures there. One is in the morning, it's right just south of the Lehman Causeway, going southbound. It's 5 minutes to get to that light at least, just through that traffic. And then, so right out of the gate, the bus gets out and it starts going late. Drawbridges, that's on the west side, coming back from Intracoastal Mall. The bridge goes up, the boat goes through. It's at least, I timed it was about 15 minutes delay. So it all compounds the schedule problems on these buses. The drivers all said the schedule's way too tight. We don't allow them enough time to make up lateness. But then again, we have such a long route, we don't have enough time to give them time to make up lateness. And then they also mentioned that, perhaps in the future when buses are procured again, we'll look at low floor buses because the steps going up to the bus, I think I have a picture of them. Yeah, the steps going up to the bus are quite steep for a lot of the elderly people. They work, and the drivers are patient, and they work with people, but it does take extra time for somebody to board and leave the bus. And in a situation where the schedule is tight, it's adding to the problem. So I think in the future, when the buses have to be replaced, we'll recommend that the city look at low floor buses where you just step on and it's like here. Most everybody likes the system that we surveyed. The complaints were the air conditioning system, which on any transit everybody complains about. I don't know why buses are designed that it's either freezing or boiling. I've never figured that out. People do, again, they mention late arrivals, and also because it's not sequenced properly with the phone application, they sometimes miss the bus. Like we had a driver said, well, people would look at their application and it says the bus just left. But in fact, the bus was late and 3 minutes down the road. So they left, and then of course they have the maximum frustration of watching the bus go by that they wanted to get on. So we have to work on that. And the other comments were really about the school. So at Norman Edelcup has pick up and drop off times, and it overloads the buses. Again, that's a scheduling issue. We're not going to buy an extra bus for that, but we can try to see if we can schedule them to be one behind the other for just that part of the day to try to pick up those students and not overcrowd the bus. And the other part is that the other big complaint that drivers said is that for a lot of people, the phone application is kind of confusing. I can see a few of the problems. They don't have arrows for the bus on the map to show which way it's going. They do run behind, and like I said, the other page that shows you the next arrival is based on the schedule and not on the actual location of the buses. So we will work with the provider of that to try to solve those problems. And last, the drivers all talked about the other big problem in Sunny Isles that is a big traffic problem. And going up and down Collins, but even in some of the side streets, the amount of times they're blocked by deliveries. And this is a very big problem for them, especially northbound on Collins. The deliveries tend to happen in the right lane, and the buses just have a very hard time getting around that to keep on their schedule. They also mentioned in some places where so on the east, on the northbound side of Collins, it's construction, it's the deliveries, UPS, whatever it is. We also have construction that goes on in Golden Shores. They said that actually holds them up too, because there's a lot of new construction in that area of the little houses becoming bigger houses, and that's pretty much it. So the drivers, one of the good things here is passenger surveys, drivers, and what we saw in the data all pretty much match, and we have a pretty good idea of what we have to do. One of the other driver recommendations also matched the survey, and one of the drivers took me to this. It's right outside of the Winn-Dixie in Intracoastal Mall, and that's North Miami Beach. And they have, just on that stop, on the major stops, they have an actual live information screen on the stop that tells you when the next bus will come. So we'll look at that too. Maybe there are certain important stops that we have to have that kind of live information at, so that people know when is the next bus coming, because we know it's going to be hard to solve the scheduling problem.
Is that right down to the minute?
It should be. The one that you have right now is not. The application that that contractor is not providing it by the minute. That one I think was. I think it's a different contractor. So the last thing we want to talk about is on Sundays, the use of the bus is very low. And the city has been contemplating doing something else that would serve people better and not have to run empty buses around the city. So one of the alternatives is, well, we keep the bus running. That's alternative one. The other alternative is to use what's called OnDemand Services. You've probably seen these in some other cities. They might look like a big golf cart with doors to your eyes. Those are called low-speed electric vehicles. They're all electric. And those are, one of the companies is named Freebie. There's a few others. They contract with cities, and they will provide free service, door to door. So you call it, but you have to call it on your iPhone, not your iPhone, on your smartphone, and they'll provide you door-to-door service to where you want to go. But it's what we call geofenced. In other words, you can't go anywhere. You can go anywhere within the city, and you can go anywhere perhaps where the shuttle already goes right now. It wouldn't go beyond that. So that's one alternative for Sundays. We're looking at it in particular. And the other way to do that, and some other cities have provided it, is to provide, again, only to residents, vouchers to use an Uber or a Lyft or a car sharing service that would do the same. So it would be free to you, but not to go anywhere you want. It's just within Sunny Isles or wherever the shuttle serves right now. So those are three alternatives, and we are looking to hear from people about what they think about that. That would just be for Sundays, and we'll keep the service running the other 6 days, the shuttle service. Or we keep the shuttle for 7 days. So that's a big issue that we'd like to talk about after the presentation. I said all that already. Sorry. And those are what they look like. The on-demands can look like these low-speed electric vehicles. A lot of them are cars, and some of them are small vans. I didn't show that. Some of them are vans, and then, of course, our other alternative is to continue the shuttle. And so with that, I'm done, and we'd like to hear from you. So, and do you have a microphone? Wait, I'm gonna look for, oh, there it is. Yeah, if you can use the microphone so we can, because we're recording, so we'll take all of our notes from the recording.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's not working.
Not working? Uh-oh.
Can you hear me
Oh, yeah,
Oh, okay, yes.
yeah.
First of all, I would love to thank Sunny Isles Beach for this service that I use every day except Sundays. And without this, except for the ability to walk, I would not be able to do the things I need to do. So I am so grateful. Secondly, Gateway is a bit of a problem insofar as it's a more recent stop. And however, it's used a lot. For me, again, without the bus transportation, I would have to walk about 40 minutes, and I do that sometimes, but I can't always. The classes in Gateway that are used very much are on the hour. So the classes are, let's say, from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. I go 5 days a week. I get out of class at 12, and I get home at 1:30 most often, because the route of the bus right now is that it stops at Gateway before it goes to Winn-Dixie. It leaves Winn-Dixie, it goes to Arlen House, comes back to Winn-Dixie, and then bypasses Gateway. So the class ends at 12. I'm outside waiting for a bus at 12:05. The bus invariably drives right by to go to north. If it would stop, that would be a help. Or if we could look at something to pick up people from Gateway.
Both ways.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Are the alternatives also subsidized by the county?
You want to take that? Yeah.
So currently, the answer is no. However, if we go through a modification of our interlocal agreement, have the appropriate public hearings with the city commission, there is the potential for them to be subsidized by the county. At this time, not yet. It requires special approval.
And how is it subsidized now? By a percentage or percentage not to exceed something?
Currently, almost the entire shuttle operation is funded by the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, Miami-Dade County Transit. That is our half-penny sales tax. Those are the stickers you see on our buses that say funded by the half-penny sales tax. That is how the shuttle system is currently funded, almost in its entirety.
Totally agree with one of her problems, and I see it in the survey. You're trying to cover a lot of ground, and if I have to get a Bright Line train at a certain time, it's hard that I have to go visit the neighborhood that I already go to. I use the system. I think it's great, but I live in the Towers. It's a half a mile walk to Collins, and then I either make a left and a right, and I'm almost another mile and away. So it's shorter for me to walk than to wait for the route of the bus on this thing. And when I look at that, I go, it's great, but I just don't want to have to go to point A to B. I have to go through all these other stops, and time is of an essence if I have to get on a train or catch something else or meet someone. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Let me ask a question. Would you?
Thank you, sir.
Maybe it's a good opinion question for everybody. If we were to take one of the buses and turn it into an express route, would that work? So in other words, it doesn't make every stop. We'd have one making every stop and one bus that doesn't make every stop. Of course, we have to pick pretty well where it stops, but would that be something that you think would help on that? I know a better app would also help that tells you when you'll get there too. I realize that. But. Okay.
I wanted to make a couple suggestions as far as stopping places. One would be Bell Harbor Shops in Surfside, that area. There's a lot of nice shopping, and maybe people would like to do that. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. My suggestion would be is for stops. Bell Harbor Shops and Surfside, which is a lot of nice stores, and it's difficult to park there and find parking. And perhaps Costco, but I know that might be an ordeal with people taking a lot of heavy groceries on the bus, but those are my two suggestions. Bell Harbor Shop, Surfside, and Costco.
I'll say Costco is a difficult one because of exactly what you said.
Thank you.
There's nothing small that goes back home with you, and it is very far away. It's very far out of the city.
All of your suggestions will be taken into consideration.
Yes. I have some friends that reside in Aventura, and they take the freebie everywhere. And it seems to work very well for them. Another option that I saw mentioned there would be vouchers for Uber. And I think that would be very helpful, especially for people who are mobility impaired and have difficulty negotiating steps on the shuttle buses. I think something like that. Some of the freebies are Tesla cars, which is a luxury ride. So that would be a suggestion.
Yes?
In coordination with the drawbridges, aren't they supposed to go up like on 15 minutes or on the half hour and make the boats wait? And sometimes I wonder, and like sometimes, it's only 5 minutes, but other times it's, it seems like the operator in there kind of abuses the systems at times.
They are supposed to go, I think, on 163rd, I think, is on the half hour, is it? Or is it on the 15s? I can't remember. They're usually either on the 30s.
On the 15s, I'm not sure about 163rd.
Okay, yeah, I mean, they alternate them. But yes, they're not always perfectly on the clock for that. And they will wait as long as it takes. They have a different set of the rules, and that's a state jurisdiction. And so they have to wait for those boats to clear. And if the boat, kind of fumbles up down there and so forth, they'll just keep the bridge open until that boat's clear. So it's very difficult to schedule around their schedule because we're never sure if it's going to be a 10-minute opening or a 20-minute opening.
So possibly some better communication with the state to assure that they follow a closer guideline and not, because I think some of the operators of the bridge can kind of work at their own whim, and they can abuse it if they're not told by their supervisors. Or if we don't make complaints, we should be complaining to the state if we see such an action, because it really affects,
Yeah, we can. I think we can give a recommendation to the city to make a comment to the state, but they do have their own set of rules. That they do really have to wait for those boats to clear. That's their first priority, and causes us to wait. So.
I think one of the problems with ridership is people don't know where and when it goes. I have that problem myself. One day I was going to try to take the shuttle. I went out and I didn't see it, and then I turned around to go back and it sailed by me. But I really don't know where it was going. I just wanted to take the shuttle and hope that it would get me to my destination. So if there's some way that you can publicize what the routes are and where they are, the stops, because it's been very confusing to me.
As we said, if you go to the website, all of the routes and exactly the exact route of stop to stop going north and south are listed. The only problem is if the bridge or something holds up a bus, sometimes the times that we have in the normal schedule can't be adhered to. But the actual stop to stop and exactly where the bus is going is definitely listed for you, but it is a timing problem.
Which number you stop above it, and another problem is it doesn't come frequently enough to the gateway. I once waited a long time, nothing came, and I was lucky enough that I once waited at Gateway, came out of an event, and I waited quite a long time. No bus came in either direction, and I was lucky that some kind person gave me a ride home, because otherwise I was really stuck there. So I think it's something.
Well, we apologize for that, and unfortunately, some of the traffic delays that everyone is experiencing on Collins stop the buses from reaching you as well. And we battle with that, and our drivers battle with that every day. We're always looking for ways to improve it. If you had waited, eventually one would get there, but I bet you it was something on Collins that prevented the bus from coming to you. We get those complaints, unfortunately, way too often. and they're uncontrollable at times. Any additional comments? Somebody else would like to make us some more suggestions?
How many buses does Sunny Isles currently operate?
So there are, on any given day during the week, you have 2 buses running the orange line, north, orange, and south, and you have the blue line, which is running a similar route with just a little bit different stops. So Monday through Friday, you have 3 running. We own 6 and a couple of vans. So what happens when we have breakdowns, outages of our buses, sometimes we'll end up putting a van into service as well. So sometimes you'll see a van running one of those routes. So be aware that sometimes the routes are run with a van. And in response to, and it doesn't affect most of the people in this room, but in response to the high volumes of students riding the buses, we typically now are sending the blue line, which can be a bus. Right now it's a bus. For a while it was a van. For a long time it was actually a van running the blue line. But we'll send the blue line right behind the orange line so that we can double up transportation. It was a suggestion that was already made and already implemented. We have so many children getting on the bus in certain locations, whether it's going to school or going home, that I will try to send a blue line bus right behind one of the orange lines so that 2 buses can be picking up at the same time and we can get more children transported home quicker than we have been in the past. So we have been working on that in the afternoon and in the mornings. So if you are all riding in the morning, be aware there may be a lot of children on your bus. But we are attempting to get kids to and from school quickly. So.
One of the things that I've noticed is that when I walk on Collins Avenue, I think part of the reason why we do this is to get cars off the street. You stop pollution, you lower traffic, and people get around in the community. And I'm walking on the sidewalks on Collins Avenue, and it's very crowded and very dangerous sometimes. Sometimes somebody's coming out with a baby stroller, and I have to walk in the street and go back in there. And I'm saying, have you ever thought of having one shuttle that just goes back and forth on Collins Avenue, that anybody is getting people off the sidewalk and walking?
We will bring that as a suggestion, but I can give you a little bit of the answer. So the county's funding for this has a couple of rules. And 2 of the rules that are important here is, one, when we talk about going to locations outside of the city, you can't go not more than 30% of the route can be outside of the city. The other big rule that they have is you can't duplicate the county's service too much. So if we ran up and down Collins, we would be duplicating the county's service. So we have to do something a little different.
Would you like to speak? So the question over here that I will go ahead and let everybody know is the website. For those of you that don't go there all the time, it's www.sibfl.net. And there is an icon on the front, if I recall correctly, that takes you right to the shuttle schedule. You're most welcome. Would you like to speak?
Would that be safer and nicer if the school had their own bus and take care of the children?
So she asked, would it be safer if the school had their own bus to take care of the children? And the situation is that Miami-Dade County Public Schools and the state of Florida Department of Education do not provide school board transportation. It's called courtesy transportation under 2 miles. Our city is too small to have a Miami-Dade County bus. So we as a city have always allowed our shuttle to accommodate the students that don't or can't walk, or that their parents don't transport. It's best, obviously, for traffic congestion for them to ride our shuttles if possible. Obviously, a lot of children do ride. Anyone else?
Okay.
Well, Mark,
very
thank you
much.
so much for coming today
you.
and going over the presentation for everyone again. I see a couple faces that were with us last night, so thank you for listening to the repeat performance. But we wanted to share this information with more people, and we felt it was very important to do so. And a lot of the people in this room are a lot of our frequent shuttle users, and we appreciate being able to serve you that way. If you have concerns, always feel free to call extension 1921 at the city. That's the main line for the shuttle service. We do have paper copies of the routes as well available in our shuttle office. Or you're welcome to call me. I'm at extension 1956. Again, I'm Audra Kurtz, and I'm the assistant city manager. The gentleman in the blue shirt in the back corner is Fred DeMarco. He is brand new to the city. He is our transportation manager, and he will pick up that line if you call 1921 and answer any questions you might have. So again, we thank you very, very much.